Okay, so let's jump right into a story about a first contact that goes horribly, terrifyingly wrong. We're talking about a peaceful, advanced civilization that finds itself facing total annihilation. And in their final, desperate moment, they send out a call for help. The real twist, though, isn't what's happening to them. It's about what answers that call. It's something that Galaxy thought it understood, but as you're about to see, it was completely, utterly wrong.
So picture this. We're on a world called Valanth Prime, home to the Valanchi people. For generations, they've known nothing but total peace. I mean, they're artists, musicians, thinkers who have literally forgotten the very concept of war. Their world is a paradise. But then one day, their sky is just torn open by invaders, and that long, beautiful peace is shattered in a single moment.
And just who are these invaders? Well, they're the Cathrak Dominion. The descriptions we get of them are pure nightmare fuel. Think 8-foot-tall insectoids, covered in natural armor, with arms that just end in razor-sharp blades. And these guys aren't just an invading army. They are brutal, they are efficient, and they have absolutely zero mercy.
But here's where it gets truly horrifying. The Crothrak aren't here to conquer or colonize. No, their goal is so much worse than that. You see, they look at the peaceful Valanchi not as a people to be ruled, but as a resource to be harvested. They are, for all intents and purposes, cosmic farmers, and the Valanchi are the crop, destined for something they call their breeding pits.
This line from the Cathrak commander, Thrixol, just sends a chill right down your spine, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the absolute hopelessness of the situation. There's no room for negotiation. There's no chance of surrender. To the Cathrak, the Valanchi are no different than cattle, and their fate is completely sealed. The despair is just total.
But in this moment of utter despair, the Valanchi leader, a guy named High Luminary Solvith, he remembers something. It's like this forgotten relic from 300 years ago, a treaty they signed with a group called the Galactic Concord, and a small, dusty distress beacon they left behind. It is a 1 in a million shot for sure, but it is the only one they have left.
Solvith hits the button. A single signal flares out into the void, and it locks onto just one destination, Terran. Now, it's a name the Valanchi don't recognize, a word that means nothing to them. But all the way across the system, on the Cathrak flagship, that name does mean something. They just aren't quite sure what.
So, of course, the Cathrak intercepts the signal, and their commander, Thrixol, is completely dismissive. Terrans? Humans? He practically scoffs at the idea. He sees them as these small, soft-skinned prey animals. But just to be sure, he asks his intelligence officers for a report, and what they pull up begins to paint a very, very different picture.
And this is where the story gets really chilling, because we learn about humanity through the terrified eyes of other aliens. The Glorani call us persistence predators, the monsters that just never stop. The Silithine are absolutely horrified that humans consume what they consider poison, toxins, for fun. And the telepathic Mondarari? They were so disturbed by human minds, by concepts like spite, that they refused to ever make contact with us again. Even the Cathrak's own archives tell of humans who, when hopelessly outnumbered 50-1, chose to die just to take a few enemies with them. But even with these chilling reports, Thrixol remains arrogant. And, his arrogance seems justified when, 3 days later, a single ship arrives. And would you look at this thing? It's not sleek or elegant. It's the Perseverance, a battered, ugly, angry-looking human warship that looks like it's already been through a dozen wars and barely survived each one.
Let's just put this situation into perspective for a second. This one single, scarred human ship is facing a fleet of 47 Cathrak warships. The odds aren't just bad, they are mathematically insane. To the Cathrak, this isn't a battle, it's an execution.
And then, the transmission comes through. Captain Elena Vasquez appears on the screen. She looks calm, she looks steady, and she looks completely unafraid. And she delivers this ultimatum. Not a plea, not a negotiation, but an order. The sheer audacity of it, given those odds, is just staggering. Thrixol, of course, just laughs it off.
So the 15 minutes are almost up. The Cathrak are just about to fire. And then this happens. Dozens, then hundreds of missiles suddenly just tear out of hyperspace all around them. See, the Perseverance didn't come alone. It brought death with it, perfectly timed and pre-launched to arrive at this exact moment. The trap is sprung. The battle begins, and in an instant, the Cathrak fleet is thrown into absolute chaos. 12 of their ships are gone in the first 30 seconds. Commander Thrixol stunned. The Cathrak have read the stories about humanity, sure, but now they're learning the brutal, terrifying difference between stories and reality.
The humans don't fight with honor. They fight to win. Their boarding parties use tactics that the Cathraks consider cheating. They don't aim for the chest. They aim for weak points, the eyes, the leg joints. They distract, they flank, they coordinate with this terrifying efficiency. And that fourth point is the most important one. They simply never, ever stop.
And this, right here, perfectly illustrates their tenacity. A human sergeant named Torres gets a massive Kuthrak blade shoved right through his shoulder. I mean, that's a fatal wound for anyone else. His response? He grabs the blade to hold it in place, looks the Kuthrak warrior in the eye and says, "That was a mistake." Then he headbutts the creature into oblivion before shooting it 6 times. And this same defiance is just everywhere. While the Perseverance is being ripped apart by enemy fire, the chief engineer is literally laughing as he patches a hull breach, shouting insults into the void. They take all their pain and their terror and they turn it into something else entirely, a weaponized defiance.
The results are just devastating for the Clothrak. This chart says it all, really. They started with 47 ships. By the time the battle is over, 31 are destroyed, and human marines have actually captured 6 others. A single human ship didn't just survive, it dismantled an entire invasion fleet through sheer ferocity and will.
Okay, now, let's shift gears. Let's go from the brutal violence of that battle to the quiet aftermath. The Valanchi survivors, they start to emerge from their tunnels, and they're expecting to find their world in ruins, maybe even occupied by new, even scarier conquerors. But that is not what they find.
Instead of conquerors, they find these same terrifying human soldiers acting like aid workers. They're treating the wounded, they're clearing debris, they're sharing their food, and they're even seen playing with the little Valanchi children. The monsters who just tore a fleet apart are now acting as these gentle protectors? And this is the question High Luminary Solvith asks Captain Vasquez. He saw the terrifying violence up there in orbit. He saw what her soldiers were capable of. And now he sees those same soldiers rebuilding his city with care and compassion. He just can't reconcile the two realities. How can one species be both the terrifying destroyer and the gentle protector? So this is the crucial point, this paradox right here. The galaxy fears humanity as these unstoppable predators, the thing lurking in the dark. But what they fail to understand is that the very same traits that make humans terrifying also make them unwavering guardians. They are the thing that fights the dark, precisely because they understand it so well. And this is Captain Vasquez's powerful answer. Humans are the way they are because they evolved on a dangerous world, constantly afraid. They remember what it feels like to be alone, to be the prey, to scream for help in the dark and have absolutely no one answer. So now they have made it their purpose to be the ones who answer. They run toward the danger, not away from it. And this line just brings it all home. Humanity doesn't deny its monstrous potential for violence. No, instead, they own it. The difference between them and the Cathrak isn't the capacity for destruction, it's the choice of how to wield it. Do you become the predator that hunts in the dark, or do you become the guardian that fights it? It all comes down to a choice.
All right, let's get into a wild story about a massive galactic empire that's been on top for centuries, totally convinced of its own power. But what happens when one single ship shows up from a past they tried to bury, carrying a 2-million-year-old grudge? Yeah, this is all about that epic choice between revenge and redemption. So let's set the scene. You've got the Valari Empire, and they are an absolute powerhouse. For 300 years, this guy, High Arbiter Thesic, has been in charge, and he's never known what it feels like to be afraid. His empire, it controls 3 whole spiral arms of the Andromeda Galaxy, has conquered 1,000 different species, and has weapons that can literally crack planets like eggs. They are, for all intents and purposes, the masters of their own universe. And boom. This is the line where everything changes. It just perfectly captures that sudden shift. After centuries of being completely unchallenged, something has finally, deeply rattled the unshakable High Arbiter Thesic. We're talking a cold, real fear, the kind his ancestors wrote about in texts that are now forbidden. It's taking root, and it's not going away. I mean, just think about that number for a second. This isn't just some powerful country. It's a civilization that has brought 1,000 different species to their knees across huge chunks of a galaxy. They are the very definition of an apex power. an empire built on nothing but conquest and overwhelming military strength. So that's the real question, isn't it? What in the universe could scare these guys? Well, the answer comes from way out on the edge of everything, from an observatory watching the big empty void between galaxies. A single, unidentified ship has just appeared. It came out of a space that nothing is supposed to be able to cross, and its path, well, it traces right back to the one place Hfystory history has desperately tried to forget, the galaxy their ancestors ran from 50,000 years ago. And here's the twist. This isn't some new enemy. It's an ancient one. High Arbiter Thesic, he knows the truth. See, the story every Hfystory kid grows up hearing, that their ancestors were these noble refugees escaping some terrible catastrophe, it's a complete lie. He knows they weren't fleeing a disaster, they were fleeing a war they started, and a war they lost. This just lays out the absolutely staggering timeline of that lie. So picture this. 2 million years ago, the Hfystory find Earth. They decide to just drain our sun for fuel, writing off the early humans as insignificant animals. But those animals, well, they didn't just die. They learned. They adopted. They took the tech the Hfystory left behind, and in just 20,000 years, they surpassed it. The Hfystory fought them, but every computer simulation ran the same result. Defeat was inevitable. So they ran, they crossed the void, torched their own history books, and built a brand new empire on a foundation of forgetting. You know, it all boils down to this one fatal mistake. The Hfystory saw primitives that needed to be swept aside. What they completely failed to see was a species with a totally unbreakable will to survive. A species that, as we learn later, does not quit, does not surrender, and most importantly, does not forget. Okay, so that brings us back to today. The single human ship, the Remembrance, is getting close to the heart of Hfystory space, and the Empire responds in the only way it knows how, with overwhelming force. But this showdown, it's not going to be about who has the bigger guns. It's about to be a complete redefinition of what power even means. Just look at that. The Hfystory Grand Armada gathers 10,000 warships. This is the fleet that has been crushing entire civilizations for 50,000 years. It's a sight that is designed to create pure terror and force you to surrender on the spot. It's the fist of the Empire, ready to smash whatever's in front of it. And facing that massive armada is this. One ship. The Remembrance. It's ancient, its systems are completely unreadable, and it just moves with this quiet, unnerving confidence. Its captain, Elena Vasquez, simply says she's here to talk about old matters and outstanding debts. So, of course, some young, arrogant Hfystory commander can't take the tension and decides to open fire. He unleashes the full power of his dreadnought, a ship that can shatter moons. And nothing. The human ship kind of glows for a second, and then the Hfystory dreadnought just goes dark. All power gone, no weapons, no engines, nothing. Not a single person on board is hurt. This wasn't a battle, it was a lesson. Then, Captain Vasquez appears on the main view screen and delivers this absolutely bone-chilling message. And suddenly, it all makes sense. This wasn't an attack, it was a demonstration. It was a controlled, very deliberate show of technological superiority that basically said, we could wipe you all out without breaking a sweat, but we're choosing not to. Okay, so you gotta be wondering, right? If this isn't about getting revenge, what's the point? Why cross 2 million years and an impossible stretch of space just to talk? Well, in a very tense meeting, Captain Vasquez finally reveals humanity's true mission, and it's a whole lot more urgent than just settling an old score. And this is where we see just how much humanity has changed. They're not just warriors anymore. They've become something like cosmic caretakers. Turns out, they've spent the last 1,000,000 years cleaning up the messes left behind by the fleeing Hfystory. They need those forbidden records, not to punish them, but to find and help all the other victims. And then there's that last step. Recruit. Because this is the real enemy. A swarm intelligence called the Silence. And it's not an empire. It's more like a cosmic plague. It doesn't conquer. It just consumes. Everything. Humanity fought it in the Milky Way 200,000 years ago and thought they won. They were wrong. It's been out there, growing in the dark, and now it's followed them to Andromeda. Wow, so this revelation just changes everything. The Volari are now facing an impossible choice. Their entire history is a lie, their power is a total facade, and their only shot at survival rests with the very people their ancestors tried to wipe out. This is the moment their old empire dies, and something completely new is born from the ashes. As you can imagine, the truth shatters the Volari Empire. Riots break out everywhere. But facing total annihilation, High Arbiter Thesic makes a different choice than his ancestors. He chooses to cooperate. The two fleets, once bitter enemies, now join together. And it's a tough alliance, built slowly through small acts of trust. But it's finally sealed in the heat of battle when a young Volari pilot sacrifices herself using a mix of human and Volari tech to push back the silence. A whole new legacy is literally forged in fire. And this quote from Admiral Vasquez just perfectly captures the heart of the entire story. I mean, any species can destroy. That's the easy part. But to build something, to forgive, to consciously choose to be better than your ancestors, that requires real strength. It's a kind of strength the old Volari never had, but one that this new generation, fighting alongside humanity, is just starting to understand. So after 2 million years, the debt gets paid. Not with blood, but with a shared fight for survival. The story really leaves us with this one big question to think about. What does it really mean to be strong? Is it the power to hold on to a grudge forever and seek payback? Or is it the power to remember everything that was done to you and still choose to build a better future together?